This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Tuesday, May 14th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Attorney General William Barr appoints a U.S. attorney to examine the origins of the Russia investigation and look into the government's intelligence operation on the Trump presidential campaign. The House of Representatives is getting ready to vote on a bill that's supposed to prevent discrimination against the LGBTQ community, but critics warn it could hurt religious freedom. Israel celebrates its Independence Day today, as well as the move of its U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. And they're literally life or death decisions you make every day. How what you eat affects your health and your lifespan. All those stories and more are ahead today in this edition of CBN Newswatch. We want to begin with Attorney General William Barr. He wants to know whether the intelligence community lawfully investigated the Trump campaign in 2016. He's appointed a U.S. attorney to examine the origins of the Russia investigation and determine if it was, quote, lawful and appropriate. John Durham, the U.S. attorney in Connecticut, will conduct the inquiry. He was nominated by the president and unanimously confirmed by the Senate just last year. Ken Starr, the former independent counsel during the Clinton presidency, is praising the attorney general's choice.
We have perhaps the most respected prosecutor in the United States who served so brilliantly, including some assignments during the Obama administration. He's totally above politics. You can't talk about he's an angry Republican. He was confirmed by literally every member of the Senate who voted. And why? Because of his record. So we have a really honest cop on the beat now.
Heather Sells is following this story for us today and joins us now with more. So, Heather, it sounds like Durham has a solid reputation.
Yeah, I think everyone would love an honest cop on the beat. The Democrats, not only was he unanimously confirmed, but the two Democratic senators from Connecticut called him fair and fierce in terms of a prosecutor, and they said he does know how to try tough cases.
So now this investigation begins as a similar one is ending, correct?
Yeah, it's hard to keep track, but the Justice Department's Inspector General is examining the Russia probe's origins, and the Attorney General Barr expects that report will be finished this month or next. Plus, congressional Republicans say they want to look into how the investigation that shadowed the Trump presidency for almost 2 years began and whether there's legal concerns. Meanwhile, Special Counsel Robert Mueller recently finished his investigation, and he found that there was no criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin to tip the outcome of the 2016 election.
All right, Heather Sells, thank you so much for your reporting.
You're welcome.
The House is set to vote this week on the Equality Act, a bill that opponents argue is anything but equal. Abigail Robertson brings us more on why religious freedom advocates are sounding an alarm.
Males identifying as females using the women's locker room. Faith-based adoption and foster agencies required to place children with same-sex couples. And florists forced to fill orders for same-sex weddings. Critics tell me these are just a few of the potential results if the Equality Act becomes law.
Every American should be treated with dignity and respect, but our laws need to protect the constitutionally guaranteed rights that we have.
Greg Baylor in the Alliance Defending Freedom handled numerous religious liberty cases in states where laws like the Equality Act already exist.
Now, under the Equality Act, we will have a nationwide law, so we will see a proliferation of instances where Christians and others are being coerced to violate their beliefs in order to comply with such a law.
While introducing the bill, Democrat lawmakers talked about making the protection of same-sex individuals a priority over other constitutional freedoms.
We cannot allow claims of religious freedom to be used to discriminate against an LGBT individual.
It makes a difference when any level of government or any corporation says that this sort of discriminatory behavior and action is wrong. It makes a difference. And it provides those of us in our community, the LGBT community, with the tools that we need to fight back.
In requiring things like faith-based adoption agencies to place children with same-sex couples, opponents fear religious liberty cases will pop up all over the country.
Some of the things hidden in the Equality Act are very disturbing and alarming, and what they could do to Christian values in this country, so we're certainly keeping a pulse on it.
The bill is expected to pass a Democrat-controlled House and even has a few Republican supporters. But as of now, the Senate is not expected to bring it to the floor this session. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
For more on the Equality Act and what it could mean for Christians, tune into today's 700 Club for an interview with Matt Staver. He's an attorney and founder of the Liberty Counsel. Investors are hoping for a bounce on Wall Street today after Monday's 617-point drop on the Dow Industrials over concerns about President Trump's increasing trade battle with China. And both sides are digging in. Despite the uncertainty over China, the U.S. economy has been growing at a surprisingly strong pace. Ben Kennedy sat down with Stephen Moore for details.
The latest government figures estimated that the economy grew at a 3.2% rate in the first quarter, far better than expectations and good news after concerns about a slowdown following a strong 2018.
It's a really healthy economy, almost nothing to complain about.
Steve, talking about the wage numbers, unemployment is at a rate so low that we have not seen since December 1969. Why is that?
Yeah, that's when the Abbey Road album came out. That's how long ago it was. Employers are hiring. Every business, I talk to, whether it's from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, they say business conditions are good.
Turns out the government shutdown didn't hurt the economy like some predicted.
Strong growth, low unemployment, no inflation.
The unemployment rate is down 3.6%, the lowest in nearly 50 years.
I think you've got to tip your hat to Donald Trump and say thank you for this strong economy.
But what do you say to people who say, look, this is because of President Obama's economic policies?
Well, when we came in, the economic growth rate was 1.5. So we were limping along. And a lot of people thought a recession was right around the corner. And now we've got the economy firing on all cylinders with a growth rate twice as high.
It's that kind of growth that could propel votes for Trump in 2020.
Democrats are going to try to poo-poo the economy, but it's hard for them to do it. I mean, the polls are now showing between 70 and 80% of Americans feel the economy is in really good shape. People don't vote against prosperity, and that's what we have right now.
But we've been losing $800 billion on trade. $800 billion. We're going to stop that.
Some economists warn, however, that the effort to reduce the trade imbalance with China could throw a wrench in the economy.
Now, is the China tariff hurting the economy overall?
A little bit.
Okay,
a little bit.
It is.
The big deal now for the economy is whether Trump can get this trade deal done.
Leaders of Australia's major political parties agreed today gay people do not go to hell for their sexual orientation. The discussion came to prominence in the final days of an election campaign. Prime Minister Scott Morrison is a Pentecostal, and opposition leader Bill Shorten was a Catholic before he converted to his wife's Anglican faith. Morrison opposed gay marriage, while Shorten argued for marriage equality ahead of a national vote in 2017 with the country legally recognized same-sex unions. Shorten challenged the prime minister about whether he believed gays went to hell. Morrison responded by saying,
people's faith are people's faith, and I'm not running for Pope, I'm running for Prime Minister. And so theological questions you can leave at the seminary.
Can you clear up your position?
But Morrison said he did not believe gays went to hell. The questioning comes weeks after Australian rugby union team star Israel Folau was found guilty by the Sports Administration for using social media to say gays were damned to hell. Israel's government went on a spending binge in building up its settlements in the West Bank settlements following the election of President Donald Trump. That is according to official data obtained by the Associated Press. Israel has settled some 700,000 of its people in the West Bank and East Jerusalem since capturing them in the war in 1967. The Palestinians claim both as parts of their future state. They consider the settlements to be illegal land grabs. Oded Revi, the chief foreign envoy of the Israel Yesha Settlers Council, says, quote, the Trump administration is undoubtedly the most friendly American administration of all time. In contrast, the Obama years were extremely hard for Israel. Now we are making up for lost ground. 71 years ago today, on May 14, 1948, Israel declared its independence. Israelis celebrated last week, according to the Hebrew calendar, with the dancing in the streets, picnics, and fireworks. Today is also another important anniversary. It is 1 year since the U.S. moved its embassy to Jerusalem. President Donald Trump defied conventional wisdom and followed through on his campaign promise to move the embassy, something 3 previous presidents failed to do. The move had been mandated by Congress in 1995, but allowed presidents to delay the move for national security reasons every 6 months.
This week, we will mark 1 year since the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. The official residence of the U.S. ambassador is also moving to Jerusalem. Thus, in effect, the congregational decision will be implemented. We very much appreciate this historical decision by President Trump, just as we very much appreciate his historic decision to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
Events are planned this week to mark the 1 year anniversary. Coming up, it is one of the most famous and contested locations in the world, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Now, an exhibit in the Holy City shows the Temple Mount's history over the last 200 years. We're going to have that story right after this.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
The Temple Mount is one of the world's most contested and photographed pieces of real estate. That's why it is the theme of a unique exhibit in Jerusalem's Old City. The Mount follows the history of the holy site from the first photos almost 200 years ago to the selfies of today. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story now from Jerusalem.
We first learn of the Temple Mount in Genesis some 4,000 years ago.
For the Jews, it's the place that Abraham beamed in Isaac. It's the place that the word create from. It's the place of Holy of Holies inside of the temple. And for the Muslims, this will be the place that Muhammad rises up to heaven.
The Temple Mount is known in Arabic as Al-Haram al-Sharif, the site of 2 consecutive Jewish temples in Bible times. It currently hosts the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the iconic Golden Dome of the Rock.
The Temple Mount is the most interesting site in Jerusalem. It's the heart of the city, and we are the Museum of the History of Jerusalem.
Eilat Lieber is director of the Tower of David Museum that put together the Mount, the Haram al-Sharif exhibit. It chronicles the modern history of the Temple Mount since the beginning of photography here in 1839.
More and more visitors are very interesting in the story of the Temple Mount, since some of them cannot visit this site from different reasons. Some of them from religious reasons, some of them are just afraid.
The exhibit opens with a live cam of the Temple Mount.
We have a live all the time, so in a way you can say from the daguerreotype to the selfie. Like you have 180 years of photography in this exhibition.
It includes photos like this one of the Omar Mosque, taken around 1860. The first aerial shot taken from a Zeppelin in 1931, and one of the first videos ever on the site. Chief curator of the exhibit, Dr. Shimon Lev, said it was difficult to put together the exhibit in a balanced way.
My idea was not to ignore any of the sensitive or explosive issues and subject of this project, just to put it in a chronological, how it's developed to become the core or the center or the foundation stone, in a way, of the conflict which involve religion and nationalism and also other aspects.
Lieber says their mission is to bring people in the heart of the conflict together, help them to get to know one another, and maybe change the discussion about the disputed site. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, they're the decisions you make every day without putting a whole lot of thought into them. But one doctor says you need to realize they're really life and death decisions. We're going to hear from Dr. Andrew Lee about why what you eat is so important.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
The Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
I am Regent's first ROTC graduate student.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
So, how much thought do you put into deciding what to eat or drink? One doctor says these are literally life and death decisions. Lori Johnson talked to Dr. William Lee, the author of the book Eat to Beat Disease, which lists some 200 of the healthiest foods.
So tell us, why do you say our fork is one of our greatest health tools?
Well, as a medical doctor, I can tell you that medicines are very powerful to treat diseases, but foods are even more powerful because they can prevent diseases to begin with.
So you have in this book, which is fantastic, about 200 different foods and their different medicinal properties, but you've isolated these 5 right here. What's so special about these?
Well, before we talk about the foods, I just want to point out the fact that in my book, I talk about the way that foods and health actually work together. It's not just about the food, it's about how our body responds to what we put in it. And we have these health defense systems that actually govern whether we stay healthy or we get sick. And foods can activate it. And so I've put 200 foods that allow us to choose which foods activate our health. And that's what we have in front of us.
Fantastic. So you love tomatoes, but not just any tomatoes, right?
Well, foods are not all created equal. And I love tomatoes because they're not only a source of vitamins, but they also contain this natural chemical called lycopene, which actually cuts off the blood supply that can feed cancer and right-size our circulation. And in my book, I write about a study of almost 40,000 men who are eating 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomatoes, and they have a reduced risk of developing prostate cancer. I like San Marzano tomatoes, as an example, because they contain more of that lycopene. Other tomato types that actually are good are cherry tomatoes because they're tiny and potent. And then there's something called the tangerine tomato that's actually almost orangish colored. And so not all tomatoes were made the same. Pick the ones that actually are the most potent.
So when you talk about cooked tomatoes, I mean, it's something as simple as tomato sauce.
That's right. Something that, you know, has been used for hundreds of years that we all enjoy. This is health that we can actually lean into, that we love to put into our lives. And that's what I focus my book on, is what can we add to our lives based on science, not just what to cut out.
Do you need to eat them every day for the benefits?
Well, it depends on the different foods. The key is diversity. We want to actually be able to eat as widely as possible, and we want to eat because we enjoy what we're doing. It's so hard to deny ourselves things. That's why diets that are one size fits all and that ask you to cut things out of your life actually are so difficult to maintain.
And we know that when someone says don't eat something, you want to eat it even more. So talk about the bread. And that's another thing. We thought bread was on the don't eat list.
Right. Well, this is where science is helping us refocus our attention. And it's not just every bread. I actually have, in my book, talk about pumpernickel bread and sourdough bread. Let's talk about pumpernickel. It's actually made with rye flour. And rye flour is a type of grain. We know whole grains are good for you. That actually lowers the level of a unhealthy bacteria that can be in our gut that produces a toxin that causes inflammation. So eating pumpernickel bread can lower that bacteria, lower inflammation. Sourdough bread, which, you know, I love sourdough bread.
Me too, and it smells great, by the way.
You know, it's got that nice tangy taste to it. Is actually made with a bacteria which makes that sour flavor, that tangy flavor. And that bacteria is the same bacteria that's in our gut, a healthy gut bacteria that boosts our immune system, that helps us heal faster, and even helps our brain release the social hormone called oxytocin, which is what we get when we actually get a hug from somebody we love.
And fruit is another thing. You say that kiwi are excellent for our health, and we've been told to watch out for the fructose, to watch out for the sugar in fruit, but you say not so much.
You know, food is complicated, and it's too difficult to just reduce it to a single bad guy part of it. And so, you know, we all have to watch out for the amount of sugar that we eat, and some people actually need to be especially careful because they may have diabetes, for example. So, but fruits in general come with not only natural fruit sugars, but a lot of other things which include fiber and what we call bioactives. These are natural chemicals that when we eat them, they actually act in our cells in beneficial ways. For kiwi, it actually activates one of our health defense systems, that's our DNA protection. So our DNA can be damaged by the environment. You get sunshine, ultraviolet radiation, you get secondhand smoke that you breathe in, or even when you're at the filling station, if you can smell the fumes of the gas, those are toxins that can damage DNA.
Wow, so when we're pumping our gas, if we smell the gasoline fumes, we should maybe move?
I always stand upwind.
Oh.
So, but the trick is that we can't avoid these types of environmental harms, but research has shown that one kiwi a day will reduce the damage to DNA by about 60%. And if you have 3 kiwis a day, this was done in a clinical study, actually it will help the DNA repair itself by about 60%.
Now you can see the entire interview, including more of the healthiest foods and drinks, by tuning into Healthy Living. That is this evening at 9:30, and you can find it on the CBN News channel. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I leave you with this thought. They're lines from a song that's been playing in my heart today. Over and over, you keep on blessing me. I can't explain it. It's so amazing. You keep on blessing me. The bottom line here is, with God, we have got favor. And with that word, I encourage you to make today a terrific Tuesday. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. Remember that you can always find more on the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. You can also watch CBN News programs anytime throughout the day on the CBN News channel. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as Instagram. Certainly hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.